Hey guys, it's Jordan with your weekly refuge video. I hope you're doing well. We finished our series Family Matters, and we're going to do another one-off sermon in our series I Have Questions. And so this time we're going to talk about arguing and arguments. I don't know who you are, it doesn't matter who you are, where you live, right? You've been part of conflict and arguing. It's just a part of life, it seems, especially in our current time. Now, I've confessed to you before, I love arguing. I really do. I love the sport of it. I love trying to get ideas and prove the other person wrong and build your case. It's a fun thing to do. And sometimes you meet kindred spirits and you can do that. And other times you try that with your wife and it just doesn't go well ever. And so I'm trying to figure that one out. I'm learning an important lesson about arguing that I want to share with you right now. Now, again, when I was young, I had a tactic to arguing. I just wouldn't shut up. I would just keep going and arguing, and I would just exhaust the other person where they didn't care anymore and they just gave up, and I felt like I won. Usually my brother and I, we would argue about whose turn it was to play Street Fighter on Super Nintendo or who gets to pick the show we're going to watch, stuff like that. As we got older, these arguments got a little more personal, and so did my tactics. I developed a secret weapon called sarcasm. Oh, and I knew how to press his buttons. I would say, the little thing, twist the knife, and he got angry quick, and I got beat up a lot because of it. But I felt like I won the argument because I made him mad. I guess that's how it works. Well, I've matured, and now my tactic is I want to, Ben Shapiro style, own them with facts and logic, right? Facts don't care about your feelings, all that kind of stuff. Well, that doesn't always work either, as we're going to talk about. When it comes to arguing, we all have a go-to style. What's yours? Maybe you try to be louder than the other person. You just drown them out. And if you're the only one left talking, you win. Or maybe you try to just kind of get away from it. You subtly change the subject midstream. It's like, well, we're not talking about that anymore. I got the last word. I guess I win that round. Pro move right there. Maybe you go passive aggressive. You make those sarcastic, snide comments. Seems harmless, but you know that was a deep cut. You did that on purpose. Maybe you go plain aggressive and just flip the table, right? Everybody knows you're angry and you don't care. Or the opposite, you just go silent. You get in your head or you get away and go to your room and you think, you're detaching, but everybody can see it on your face and know exactly what you wish you could say to them right now if you weren't being silent. So we all have a different way and style of arguing. Additionally, we all have things that make us want to argue. I don't care who you are. There's a subject I could get on about that you would just, So for instance, I could say cheerleading's not a sport. And everyone who's not a cheerleader would chuckle and laugh and say, yeah, cheerleading is lame. And then the cheerleaders would boo me and get mad and want to argue because they know how much time, effort, work, athleticism it takes to be a good cheerleader. Right? I could do this all day. I could say, school should just go year-round, no summer break. And all the students, whoa, right? Because you have to be there in school. It's easy for me to say, and you would get passionate about it because you don't want to do that. The Astros are the best baseball team. I don't care about baseball, but somebody's mad that I just said that. Snapchat is better than TikTok. Netflix is better than Hulu. Marvel's better than DC. Nintendo's better than Sony. Like, we could do this all day, and somebody's going to get mad. My old pastor used to say, throw a rock into a pack of dogs. The one that yelps is the one you hit. Dare I say anything political about our presidential debate we just had, about the election coming up, right? We all have subjects we care about. conversations that make us want to scream, right? Everybody has an opinion, and sometimes those opinions, they bring the fight out of us. Now, those fights don't stay harmless, unfortunately, and our world is full of arguments. There's small stuff in your life, smaller stuff, like arguing with your parents about more freedom, arguing about who should have what spot on the sports team, or who should be on the team in the first place. Maybe you're arguing about who's actually going to do all the work on the group project, or the fact that you had to do the work on the group project. Then there's more serious stuff. Like I said, who will win the election in November? Who do you think? Here's another question. Who should win the election? What do you think? And no matter who does, we still have topics we're going to discuss and debate about gun control and immigration and women's rights and how to heal a divided nation. Big stuff, right? Big stuff going on. Now, for most of you, I said I like arguing, but for all of us, I think this tension, this constant tension in our culture, it bothers us. It can be pretty annoying. It's also draining. It really is. We have enough to worry about in life without all these topics being so front and center in our culture and being so divisive. Now, when that happens, we all tend to do one of three things. Some of us go straight to anger. Again, I've confessed this. I'm angry at our culture right now. I got 2 little kids. I want them to have a better world and culture and nation than we do right now with all the junk and politics and division going on right now. So you get angry and you show up, you want to fight. You want to change them and prove them wrong and prove yourself right. That's one reaction. The other one's kind of in the middle. You feel torn. It's like, well, I kind of see both sides. I'm not angry, but you both are, so I feel like I should be. Like, you're that person. And then some of you just could not care less. You're just here to watch the fight. You got your popcorn ready. You're like, this is entertaining. You guys go ahead, have fun. All right. That said, though, when I say something you care about, you'll be in the fight. You'll be ready to go. And when we are in the fight, we all want the same thing. One simple thing, one simple word: to win. We want to win. That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And so whatever tactics, whatever stuff you've practiced when you go in, you want to win, whether that's by yelling or silencing or ghosting, showing up to the fight or running from the fight, whatever it is, you want to win out of the situation. And it feels so important in our culture for some reason to always win. Right? Everything's so divisive, so you always have to be on guard. You're always trying to find this win in these big arguments, these big for and against things going on right now. So with that in mind, I want to look to our Bibles in this time of unavoidable arguments and try to find out, what are we even supposed to do? How do we get better at arguing? And how do we actually win? As always, let's go to the Bible to find out. All right, so tonight we're going to be in the book of James, and James was the brother of Jesus. After, Mary gave birth to Jesus, Joseph and Mary, they had other kids. And so what makes this so interesting that James, he didn't grow up thinking Jesus was God, as Jesus claimed to be, the Son of God. He grew up thinking Jesus was just his older brother. So as Jesus started traveling around, preaching, teaching in the Judean countryside, traveling around with the message of this is what God is like, this is who God is, I'm God, I'm the perfect representation of God in the flesh, James wanted nothing to do with it. He stayed away, had zero interest in what Jesus was up to. Honestly, can you blame him? Could you imagine if your older sibling said, hey guys, actually, I'm God. Now, Jesus did all the miracles and the preaching with wisdom and authority, and he came back to life the way he said he would after crucifixion. That made a good case. In fact, that convinced James eventually. But that's an understandable place to be. And so James just put up walls, and you can imagine there was some conflict between the two. They weren't just fighting about a remote. This is big stuff. This is impacting the entire family, the legacy, the reputation they have. So it's interesting to read what James has to say about conflict, knowing that about James, about tension, about convincing others you're right. This is what he says in James 1:19. Now again, James later in life realizes Jesus is who he says he is, the crucifixion and then death and resurrection. That did it for James. That was enough. He goes on to become the head of the church in Jerusalem, help build a foundation that churches like Oakwood are built on 2,000 years later. So this is what he had to say. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now again, James probably spent most of his life doing what we do with our siblings. We're quick to speak, we're quick to get angry. We're not slow to listen. And so when we read the Gospels, James wasn't super supportive of Jesus for a long time. And you can imagine, he was quick to tell others, my brother is crazy. He was quick to tell Jesus that you are no way who you claim to be, Jesus. He was quick to defend himself and why he thought he was right. Quick to make a point, quick to make a stand, defend his position, quick to fight, and quick to try to convince everyone else that he was right. We can infer that from Scripture that this was a dynamic going on. That is, until James figured out he was wrong. And a lot of this was from listening to Jesus' followers, Jesus' friends, Jesus himself. James began to see something he didn't see before. His brother wasn't just acting like God. His brother was God in the flesh. And when he stopped to really listen, he learned that. Jesus was who he claimed to be. And so James changed his mind about Jesus, and it put everything in perspective. Again, James goes on to live his life building Jesus' kingdom, building the church, telling people Jesus is Lord. So much so, they told James, little sidebar here, James, stop saying Jesus is God, or we're going to throw you off the top of the temple. And James said, do it. Right? I can't stop saying what I know to be true. So James instructs us to listen first. Whether you're right or wrong, listen. Whether you know the whole story, you don't even care about the story, listen. Whether you have a great clapback ready to go, listen. Listen. No matter the situation, the response should be the same. Listen before anything else. Here's the point. You want to hear the other person, not just what they're saying, but why they're saying it. What's their perspective? What's their background? What's their worldview? Right? What matters to them? Why are they saying this? Let them feel heard. Listen to them. Listen with the intent of learning instead of trying to change their mind. I hate when you try to talk to somebody and they're already just thinking about what they're going to say next. They don't even hear you. You can tell. There was a guy I talked to, and I know as I talked to him, he listened to every word I said. It almost made me nervous about speaking. It's like, this guy's really paying attention. Before he would respond, he would really think about what I just said and then think about a response. It was a slower conversation, but I felt heard. It was really cool. And after we listen, James says we should be slow to speak and slow to become angry. This is important. It doesn't mean that we don't speak. It doesn't mean that there's not even a time to get frustrated or angry about what people say. Just be very slow and intentional about this stuff. You don't just sit back and take whatever somebody throws at you, but you're slow to get reactive. You don't speak reactively. You pause. You take a deep breath. You compose your thoughts and your emotions before you respond, before you speak. Why? Well, I don't know about you. I've been in places where I haven't. You probably have too, and we regret it. You say something, you post something, you should it in reaction. It just doesn't go well. Slow to speak and slow to anger means we don't let our emotions dictate our responses. When we do speak, it's very purposeful, and it's done with honor. We can hold our heads high after we do. Again, we all know what it's like, though, to be quick to anger, quick to speaking. But do this. Think back to when you were younger. Think back to middle school, elementary school. I want you to ask you this. Well, what were the things you got angry about? What are the things you were very quick to speak about? What things riled you up, got you involved in conflict? And then let me ask you this. Do you care anymore? Do they matter now? Do you even remember? I mean, I'm guessing no. The arguments may even seem silly at this point. But you know what is still important? The person you were having the argument with. Whether it was a sibling, a parent, stepsister, stepbrother, like a friend, no matter who it is, they matter now. Even if they're not a direct part of your life, you change schools, change towns, whatever it may be, they still matter. They're still a person, still somebody you care about because of the relationship. In other words, often the people we're fighting with, they're going to matter in your life far longer than what you're arguing with them about. Let me put it this way. You never win an argument. You never win an argument if you lose the relationship. We're in the time where tensions are so high. It's so hard to not get in conflict. It's everywhere, right? It just feels normal. It's in our homes, it's in our culture, it's all over social media. And when conflict is everywhere, again, the temptation is to ask, how do I win? How do I win the fight? How do I win the argument? I think that's the wrong question. Instead of asking, how do I win? We should say, how do I win the relationship? How can I talk about this in a way that even if we disagree, even if they're never convinced about the way I see this, we can still be friends? Even if I'm never good with their opinion, how can we be good with each other? And that's not always possible, I know, but if it's possible, it's something to fight for. That's a win. As Christians, as people who are on a mission to show the love of Jesus, what better way in a time of conflict and tension and arguments, right? To sit there and actually hear somebody out and let them know by your actions, by your reactions, I legitimately care about you. I care to hear you out. I care about your perspective, especially if they know you disagree. I still want to hear where you're at. I still care. And then you earn the right to speak into their life. And if you do this right, you earn the right to speak into their life, not just once, but for the long haul. This is how people come to know Jesus, by seeing other Jesus followers saying, listen, I love you enough that especially as we disagree, I still want relationship. This is what God did with us. This is what Jesus does with us. He loves us even when we hated him, right? Hopefully the person doesn't hate you, but you can just say, I understand we disagree about this, but I still love you. I still care. That's a win. That's how you win an argument. You can keep talking about it, and it can be an enjoyable thing, a fun thing, because you understand you're debating an idea. You're not debating the other person. That slight change, that can make the world of difference. How do I win, or how do I win the relationship? Because it's no longer about making the other person realize you're right, they're wrong. It's about making the other person realize that their relationship with you, that matters far more than being right or wrong, far more than the argument. See? There you go. Easy, right? All your conflict and arguments solved. Now, I want to be honest to tell you, this lesson I'm enjoying because I'm stepping all over my own toes. I need this so much. This has been the hardest thing of my adult life, is to learn how to be in conflict, to have strong opinions, strong convictions, but not run over the other person. You can ask my wife. I'm getting better, but I'm still a work in progress here. So let me give you a few tips that'll be helpful. One, memorize this verse. Get it in your head. It changes the way you think. That's why I always warn you guys about media, the songs you listen to, the movies you watch. When you get stuff in your head, it changes you. It affects you. Well, the same is true in the good direction. Memorize scripture. Get it in your head. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just going to say this 3 times. I want you to say it with me, right? Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1:19. Be quick to listen. Be slow to speak and slow to get angry. James 1:19. Memorize this. Get it in your head and let it affect you as you go about your life. Number 2, when you are in conflict, this is so hard to do, but I've been working on it. It changes things. Pause and pray. Sometimes my wife and I, believe it or not, right, beautiful, sweet wife I have, we will be locked in conflict. And we have different styles. I'll talk a lot. She'll stop talking, and it doesn't go well. And so I'm working on now. I'll look at her, and I'll start praying in my head for her. Lord, thank you for this beautiful, wonderful, godly woman you've given me. Help me to bless her and honor her, even in conflict, even if we don't see this eye to eye. Help me to love her the way you love the church. When you do that, it just changes the entire dynamic. What usually I just need to do is go give her a hug. She tells me that. I tried to give her a hug in an argument once, and she pushed me off. But I'll try again, I promise. Anyway, our minds, they put people in categories. And when you get angry at somebody, it's easy to lump them in the category of enemy, right? There's this conflict, this argument. And that's what we do to people. But when you pray for them, you realize, no, this is somebody I love. This is another person made in the image of God. Like, I'm not going to let this divide us. It's so stupid. All right, so that brings me to the last one. If you're going to memorize James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. And then when you're in the conflict, pray for the other person, especially if it gets heated. Take a moment, organize your thoughts. Lord, help me to love them and serve them the way you would do right now. And then you speak, and then you empathize. To empathize means you put yourself in the other person's shoes. See, what they're saying, and I'm still learning this, usually has more to do with their story than you know or realize. There's more to their opinions and beliefs. They're not just the angry, evil person that you disagree with. Even if they're wrong, that you think their conclusion's wrong, you may not quite understand why they're saying it. And you may be able to help them understand. If you really think they're wrong, you'll be able to help them understand better if you empathize. If you just go in there blasting, they'll put up walls, you'll put up walls, and nobody gets anywhere. If you come along and say, I can totally understand why you would say that, but I think you might need to rethink, like that changes the conversation. But it's hard to do this if you don't pause and listen and think about the other person. If they matter, you don't care to be slow to speak, to listen long enough to hear them out. So challenge yourself to not respond until you think you could frame their argument for them. It's called charity in a debate, right? You don't assume the worst about the person. You don't even assume the worst about their argument. You're trying to understand them, even if you disagree. It's the way things should go. Usually, if you talk about the issue from their point of view, you'll be able to I can't say this word, empathize, even if you disagree. All right. You're not going to be able to change the way everybody does this, the way they behave in conflict or argument, but you can change you. As a representative of Jesus and the kingdom, you're going to want to do this. This is something I'm working on and I want to do. It's one of the reasons I got off social media, because I wasn't being a good representative when I argued. Maybe I'll come back more mature one day. But it's easier said than done, right? Tomorrow at school, your political English teacher may say something that you don't like. Why should bring politics in? You want to throw your textbook at her? Right? It's going to happen. Or the captain of the team, he's going to make a call that nobody agrees with. Or you get home and your parents are going to say, hey, here's a change in the family, and you're not happy about it. It's going to happen. One of the reasons we do small groups is for stuff like that. I can give you the big ideas from this platform, but you need specifics. You need to be able to talk with another adult who loves you enough to listen to you and to empathize and say, I've been there and let me help you. Right? That's why we do small groups. So remember, every Wednesday night, 6:30, we're here in the room. I preach the sermon and we go into small group time. But as we finish this one out, I want you to think about one relationship that you need to practice this in. One relationship that would be improved, that would be better if you were, James 1:19, if you were slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry, right? If that's what you did. Who's that person? Think of a name right now. And then do this. Memorize James 1:19, pray for them and empathize with them. That's how you win an argument every time.